go with a P. So
Cool.
Plocker. Yeah.
Blocker.
So the CH makes a K sound.
There you go. So, folks, this is the RSP Film Room, and I'm joined by Jordan Plocker. I just wanted to make sure I had his name pronounced right because it's the first time he and I've met, actually, other than just, talking on Twitter from here and there. So today's podcast is going to be with Jordan and I. Jordan is with GM Junior, and you can find him on Twitter at Starving Scout. And I'll get him to give you the particulars of that in a minute here. But before we do that, if you're kind of new to the RSP Film Room, I read this little bit of legal mumbo jumbo here that we kind of do just to make sure that everyone understands that we're doing this for fair use. That I'm invoking the fair use rights for copyright law here because this is all educational. These are videos that are anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes long in length that are cut-ups of one particular player, and we're reviewing it to talk about football technique, how to look at players and evaluate players, and really just talking about things in a manner that are more from an educational perspective. So with that said, that the videos here at the Rookie Scouting Portfolio Film Room are not hosted on this server, and the original video content is not considered the property of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. The videos are considered to be used under the Fair Use Doctrine of the United States Copyright Law, Title 17 U.S. Code Sections 107 through 118, and the videos are used on this site for the editorial and educational purposes only, and the Rookie Scouting Portfolio staff does not claim ownership of any of the videos. And Rookie Scouting Portfolio staff do not use any of these video clips in advertisements, marketing, or anything for direct financial gain. All the video content in each of these clips are considered owned by the individual podcast companies. So with that mouthful out of the way, we're going to get this thing started. Yeah, exactly, right? So Jordan, I want to welcome Jordan to the film room. As I mentioned, he's with GM Junior, and he does really good work. And I've joked around with folks that Jordan does a lot more scouting than just one guy. Okay, but Jordan has been touting our next subject, Chris Bonner, the quarterback of CSU-Pueblo, for quite some time, and so I've jokingly called him the unofficial Chris Bonner channel, 24/7 channel on Twitter, because if you want to get some Chris Bonner updates, this man is rightfully excited about him. So welcome to the show, Jordan, and tell us a little bit how you got into all this stuff.
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan. I've seen plenty of these other ones that you've done, and it's always very educational and informative and entertaining all at the same time. I've, honestly, I was always a sort of a draft nerd even when I was a kid. I had this board game, I think it was a Parker Brothers board game called Professional Football Draft, I think, or Pro Football Draft. It was this big orange football that you spun around and you built little teams with little cards. And I've always been a fan of the draft. And then I also have a theory that draft nicks basically come about because they're fans of teams that aren't really good. And so, when your team is not very good year in and year out, you kind of look towards the draft as your hope for the future. So I kind of grew up a Arizona Cardinals fan, and the Cardinals were not very good in the late 80s and 90s. And I became a fan when they moved here to Phoenix. I live in Phoenix. So I was a kid where I would just in junior high school I would write down names and little notebooks. But basically the only cover we had back then was whatever came out in the newspaper. Basically there wasn't all this 24/7 coverage that we have now, which I love. So I was always a sort of fan of the draft in that capacity. Always sort of liked doing what a little analysis I could at that time, and that just sort of kept going and kept going and kept going. A buddy of mine ended up working for the Cardinals for a while. His name was Justin Casey. He's now up in Montreal with the Alouettes. I used to pester him all the time about trying to we'd talk about prospects or things like that. Not only fan the Flames there. I was in the Navy for 10 years, and when I was in there, I used to try to keep up to date as much as possible as I could. A lot of times it was very difficult because we'd be out to sea. I had some of my guys in my shop writing the picks down on a whiteboard off our very slow internet, from out on the middle of the ocean there. Actually, 10 years ago for the 2005 draft, I was floating off the coast of Somalia dealing with some Somali pirates that had hijacked a freighter. And then this year I'll actually be going to Chicago for the draft. So a lot's happened in 10 years. But it just kept getting bigger and bigger to the point where after I got out of the Navy, I would start making big boards on my walls. Became a teacher, and I sort of misappropriated some of the large paper from the teaching supplies and sort of made myself big boards on my walls. And then now that I live in Phoenix, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of it, but I have a 16-foot long magnetic whiteboard in my living room here, and I usually have about 250 to 320 player magnets. And so I basically have my own little draft war room in my living room.
Wow.
I call it the 33rd best place to watch the draft. But this year I won't be here for it because I'll be in Chicago with the rest of the GM Junior crew. So I didn't really have any team background because I was in the Navy. After I got out, I realized that this is what I really wanted to spend my time doing. Invested in myself, so to speak, and bought, probably spent about $1,000 on books and DVDs, just teaching myself X's and O's and schemes and things like that, so I could I wanted to have a better understanding of what was taking place, so that way I could better evaluate players. And then from there, I finally made a life decision that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to dedicate as much time as possible towards the draft, towards evaluating players. I don't know if you ever read any Malcolm Gladwell, but the whole 10,000 hour rule he has. I decided I want to spend my 10,000 hours watching film. So that's what I've been doing. That's why I have, my moniker Starving Scout is basically what it is. I was like, I'm going to do whatever little odd jobs I have to do to make enough money so I can spend the rest of my time on my scouting lifestyle. So I try to spend as much time watching film. I watch film every day. And then that's just sort of gone on from there. How I got in with GM Junior, again, my buddy Justin Casey, who's worked for the Cardinals, is a scout up with the Alouettes and works on their salary cap. And when Russ got hired up there, Justin told Russ about me, and then Russ and I had a phone conversation, and then I've been working for Russ for the last 2 years since. The first year, the way that GM Juniors does things is that we have, and I've tweeted out some scouting reports if you want to see them. There's usually about 25 different numerical categories that we have to grade on players, and then that requires probably at least a bare minimum of 3 games, usually more than that, of film study. And then Russ would just assign us schools, and we would have to do every senior who started. So, I would spend time looking at unathletic right guards from Arkansas State and having to do, the full film study on these guys that are never going to play in the NFL. So that's, we don't get to just cherry pick off the top, and just do the top guys. And then this year, we were kind of run like an NFL scouting department. So Russ is the GM, and we basically had territories. So I was the Western area scout. So I spent the majority of my time doing Pac-12 and Mountain West guys, and that's how I fell into Chris Bonner. Just because I saw that CSU-Pueblo, I felt CSU-Pueblo was in my territory, and even though, I have, my majority of my time is dedicated towards Pac-12 and Mountain West, I said, you know what, I want to, cover every school in my territory as much as I possibly can. So I watched a little bit of Bonner, and then just, became enamored, and then went from there.
So tell everyone a little bit about Bonner. What makes him stand out to you?
Sure. I'm sure you've noticed sometimes when you're evaluating players, there are players that you could watch 5 games and you still don't really feel like you have a good handle on, or you still don't really feel like you have enough to write about. And then sometimes it can happen instantly. And so we have a pretty extensive form that we have to fill out for these guys. And literally in the first half of the first game I watched Chris Bonner, I had the whole form filled out, and I had a 4th round grade on him. And so, and I was just blown away and started texting Russ. And then again, since Russ works for a team, he's a scouting director of the Alouettes, sometimes for some players I'm not allowed to talk about them publicly. So I was not allowed to talk about Bonner publicly for a while, and then Russ was able to get Bonner on the Montreal Alouettes negotiation list. So now the Alouettes actually own his rights for the CFL. What I saw from him, because again, I do a lot of film study and I evaluate a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of college quarterbacks that I see, especially the ones that are coming out nowadays, especially on 3rd downs, what I've noticed is that if on 3rd downs, there's a lot of one read. If that guy's not there, they're scrambling and trying to pick up 1st downs with their legs, or they're heavily relying on shallow crossers on 3rd downs. And those are usually big red flags for me that these guys can't handle the NFL game. I'm also a big believer these guys don't really develop that much in the NFL, so you have to really see things in their game now that immediately translate to Sundays. because I really don't. You know, it's a win now league in the NFL. A lot of teams, the regime's changing, and a lot of teams don't have time to develop these guys for 4 years or how many years it takes. So whether or not a guy's a great athlete, you need to see if what translates immediately over. And I saw a lot of things that translated immediately over for Bonner. First thing that stands out again is his size. At he's almost 6'7", and then he's a decently built kid. I mean, he could add a few more pounds, but you can tell when he gets hit that he can take a hit. He's not one of those guys who's going to get not going to be able to survive 2 games in the NFL. He can take a hit and then keep on going. The other thing that I noticed about him the most is that he's incredibly comfortable in the pocket, and that is rare. To borrow a line from Fight Club, to me, he was as calm as a Hindu cow in the pocket. He was just willing to just stand there, stand tall, no matter what came by him. You've noticed in your article that I read before, he'll sit there and reduce the shoulder and just maneuver in the pocket and then still be able to deliver a strike. And a lot of people can't do that, but as we know, that's necessary to do in the NFL game. So those are the things that I really noticed about him right away. Not to mention, his arm strength, his ability to throw well on the move, things like that. But I noticed that he was willing to stand in the pocket. He could survey the pocket well with his height. He could survey from the pocket well with his height, sees the field really well. And then just, again, his utter calmness in the pocket and ability to operate and win from the pocket.
Nice, very nice. So just out of curiosity, one of the things that you mentioned was, reading materials, DVD materials that you've looked at and studied. I know that there are going to be at least a small but very vocal number of people who will be watching this show and listening to your intro and wondering, what are some of the books or videos that I should buy if I wanted to get more into this? Do you have any that you would recommend offhand?
Well, one that I always recommend, and so does Russ, is Bill Arnsparger's book. I think it's called Coaching Defensive Football. Basically, if you can, I've read it a couple times over, but if you can understand everything in that book, you'll basically understand everything there is about defense. He's the guy who really created the zone blitz, and he just had great defenses. He had the defense from the Dolphins when they went undefeated. That book was a really big one. Ones you can find in the store. Pat Kerwin's book was good. I think it's called Take Your Eye Off the Ball, I think is the name of that one. That's a really good one. There's just a ton of them. I read Smart Football. Again, tons. And then DVDs. Most of the stuff that I got would just be coaching DVDs. So again, you would learn techniques in the coaching. And then honestly, the thing that I probably got the most information out of still to this day is Nike has these coaching clinics they put on, Coach of the Year coaches clinics, and they have all the lectures in a book. And every year it comes out, and it's got all these top college coaches giving lectures on, facets of their offense or facets of their defense or practice philosophy, things like that. Those things have been invaluable to me, honestly. I've learned a ton from that. And then, it's also when you run into the coaches, you can, kind of joke with them. Because I ran into Art Briles 2 years ago at the Senior Bowl, and I said, "Hey, Art, I just read your lecture on the plane over," and so we kind of joked about that. So those things have been great. Those Coach of the Year clinic notes have been awesome.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's always good. I know that I get a lot of questions from people about resources of that type. So that's quite valuable, and I appreciate that. So for those of you who are new to the RSP Film Room, as you can see, it's two guys talking shop. And we're going to do a little more than talk shop. We're going to spend the next part of this probably hour, maybe a little longer, watching the tape of Chris Bonner, and it's going to be the Sam Houston State game, and Draft Breakdown is providing us a cut up, and we actually have all 22 coverage here, which is going to show us a little bit of 2 different angles for each play. So with that, it's about a 20-minute video clip. So I'm probably going to have us go in real time, unless Jordan or I want to point out something that we can do in a slower and slow it down. Usually I often put it at half speed, and it gives us a chance to talk about something and see things develop. But I'll keep it at full speed, and then if it either gets too jumpy or we want to focus on something to talk about, I'll slow it down from there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up so everybody can see what it is that we're going to be looking at here, and make sure that Jordan can see it. And we should be good to go. How's that look for you, Jordan?
Looks good.
Okay. Well, let's get it going. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah, the first thing that I wanted to state about this is that, again, Colorado State Pueblo is a D2 school. And this game that he's playing here is against a FCS team. So this is a step up in competition, and it's a road game at an FCS school. So, you know, again, different level of competition. And this is not just an FCS team. This is an FCS team that actually went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. So, again, a much stiffer level of competition than what he was used to in D2. So I just wanted to put that out there as sort of a disclaimer.
No, that's great. That's great. And right away, I mean, one of the first things that I do see that I like is, I mean, I do feel like he has fairly crisp feet when he drops back. And you see him wanting to try and reduce and climb here. It just doesn't quite happen.
Yeah, it doesn't quite happen. And then, like, you know, again, you would like to have seen him get through that and, like you said, reduce and climb and throw. But the one thing that, you know, the silver lining of it is that I like to think about is that, again, like he basically is getting sacked on his first drop back on this big road game against a tough opponent. And, you know, how does he bounce back from that?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the key things I love about quarterbacking, and I can see that you and I are probably on the same wavelength with this, which is it's not whether the quarterback screws up or makes a mistake or something bad happens to him. It's really how they respond to it and how they play, you know, because these are the guys who are the leaders of the offense. How do they play out of a hole, you know?
Right.
And you see, you know, Sam Houston State's coming at it early, and they're certainly bringing pressure. And you see that, you know, whether it was Chris himself or it was the staff, they have a screen called there that they reacted to fairly well.
Yeah, they have several throughout this game, a lot of different tunnel screens and things like that. One of the things that you know, I find interesting and different about Bonner compared to other quarterbacks in this draft class is that, you know, he did a lot of NFL stuff at the line of scrimmage. Well, first of all, he called plays in the huddle, which is rare nowadays, and then operated under center. And then also, again, he had a bunch of younger players, so he had to get the players to the line, get them lined up properly, change protections, possibly change the play. He was doing a whole bunch of NFL-level stuff from the shoulders up, which a lot of people aren't doing.
Yeah, and from a mechanical perspective, even on this play, just little things that are layers of what I like about him, because a lot of things you mentioned are the same things I saw that I liked. And it begins also with the feet and the eyes, you know, looking downfield to set up the screen, looking in the middle. And look how he gets on the toes a little bit to deliver the ball, make sure he gets that little extra bit of height. You know, I just like players who move around on their feet well to distribute the ball, and I think that he does that both from a structured and unstructured way, as well as any of the quarterbacks we have in this class who work the pocket.
Right, and you know, being a tall, long kid like that, they've been working a lot on his footwork, you know, in the season before the draft here. There's a decent throw on the move there. He throws pretty well on the move. There's some other plays later on. We'll see more of the straight out of the Kubiak-Shanahan playbook of the, you know, bootleg play action.
Absolutely. But even just, you know, just even watching this one, it's not that full-fledged kind of boot, but being able to be fluid enough to cut short a little bit, you know, just move a little bit and cut that short, but still be in position to deliver the ball. And again, playing on his toes, I like that. You know, it's just I think that, you know, a lot of times with a lot of athletic endeavors, you want to see guys who are playing off of the balls of their feet, their toes, being able to have a little bit more control, a little more bounce, a little more explosiveness.
Right. There's a nice window throw there.
We'll get to see it from this end zone angle here. Yeah, just very quick and decisive, and it's a nice quick setup. And you see that form. I mean, it's a nice form over the shoulder there.
Right. And one of the good things, again, like as you know, with a lot of these taller quarterbacks and these long quarterbacks, you tend to have like elongated throwing motions, and Bonner doesn't.
No, it's very quick and right up there like that.
Right.
And tell folks who may be new to, watching quarterbacks why an elongated throwing motion can be troublesome for a quarterback.
Well, sure. It serves as a tell to defensive backs that the ball is coming. So the longer the throwing motion is, the more time these defensive backs have to break and react on the ball. And again, guys with long arms have a tendency to have a sort of longer looping delivery and release. And Bonner doesn't. Again, he's working on tightening it up even more now, but it was never, an issue for me seeing his release, which it is again for some of the taller guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even guys like Andre Woodson. I remember Andre Woodson was a guy who had a fairly long throwing motion out of Kentucky. Um, and it's not a career killer, but you have to compensate for it if you do have it. You better have a very strong arm and a very quick release to get
Right.
away with it, and you're more of an exception to the rule than you are the rule. But the fact that he brings that up from his chest, just behind his ear, and
Right.
lets go of it is very nice. Very nice. It's good.
I mean, if we go back to the release issue, I mean, that was one of Jameis Winston's issues this year with his interceptions, is he had a tendency to pat the ball, and then DBs would start breaking on his pat, and then he would dip the ball all the way down to his waist and then bring it back up. So I saw on film sometimes DBs were getting 3 full steps on Winston during his release,
Yeah.
during his delivery, and he's tightened that up a lot. And even at the combine, he threw with completely different mechanics than he did during the season.
Yeah, and during the season, we had Will Hewlett on here who works for the range, and he did a thing with Winston. And one of the things that he talked about is a lot of these off-platform throws. And on the good end, it's nice to be able to have that skill to make those off-platform throws. But on the other end of the spectrum too, you have to know when and when not to use them,
Right.
and know and have a gauge for it. And guys who are more, how would I put it, improvisational and work on the outside structure of the play and thrive outside the structure of the play, they need some time to adjust to that. And sometimes that adjustment period means making some really bad mistakes.
Yeah. Again, there's
It's a
another.
little touch.
There's a play action. This is just a screen there, but again, Pro Football Focus came out and did they broke down a lot of the quarterbacks and stats, and I guess Marcus Mariota led the nation in play action passes, but all of those play action passes are just zone read meshes, where he's already in shotgun, he's already staring at the defense, and then he's basically just turning to the side. Where when you operate under center in a more pro style system, you have to turn your back to the defense. And Bonner is some quarterbacks really struggle with that. Bonner's already adept at turning his back to the defense and then turning his head back around and reading things and making a proper throw.
Yeah, and while I kind of like, I don't know if he had to loft it here, but I like the fact that he can do that.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that again, he gets the hips around very fast. His form is very solid, and he did have to loop it over. I mean, he had a defender right in his face.
Yeah.
Right at the stage. That's nice touch.
Yeah, and he can put touch on the ball. I mean, one of the knocks on him, and I saw it on tape too, and I know you did as well, is sometimes he has a tendency to just put too much velocity on balls that actually require a bit more touch. But as you see he can throw with touch. It's just something that he needs to keep working on.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes something projectable, and I think that's something that we often hear, and you can hear differing opinions about. People go, well, this guy will improve that. Well,
Yeah.
how do you determine what's projectable and what's not? Well, if you see evidence of something working, but it just doesn't happen consistently, and you can explain why or where, then it begins to make a little bit more sense as to saying, yes, touch is projectable with a guy like Bonner. Here's another play action pass turning here.
Right. That's an NFL play right there. And then throws into a tight window in between 3 defenders. So again, turns his back to the defense in play action from under center, has to get his eyes and his body back around, reset his feet, and then sees that window and delivers that ball on a rope there.
And in rhythm.
And in rhythm, yes.
Yeah,
that's an NFL play and an NFL throw. So again, I can see right there that play translates to Sundays because we see quarterbacks do this on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a play you would see Matt Ryan execute weekly to either Julio Jones or Roddy White or even Harry Douglas, where you would see this type of play fake, turn back, maybe have to climb, and he's aggressive with the climb, which I like to get away from, this outside pressure that he saw and felt.
Yeah.
All very good in rhythm. That's exactly like you're saying. I mean, that is definitely an NFL throw, and we'll get to see it from this other angle. Maybe we'll see why that, from his perspective, this pressure. I mean, that's, seeing that in the periphery and just making sure that he buys that time and gets in there. Nice throw to the spot.
Yeah, you can see from that angle too. That wasn't a very big area for him to throw that ball in. But as you've mentioned and I've mentioned both before, he has an aggressive nature to him. It's sort of like a calculated aggression. He doesn't take too many risks, but he's willing to take risks. Willing to fit balls into windows and things like that. He's willing to put the ball down the field because he knows he has the arm to do it.
Yeah, and having that balance is important because you definitely want to be aggressive. You just want to balance it so that you're not reckless. And he definitely understands how to do that.
Right. Here's your prototypical Shanahan-Kubiak play. So this will be a play that the Broncos, well, maybe not so much with Peyton, but when Peyton is gone, this is going to be the staple of the Broncos offense here. This play action boot, and he throws this beautifully. Has, the foot agility and mobility to execute this fake, get his eyes back around, get depth, and then, wing that ball on the move to that guy on the far side of the field.
Yeah, and it's
a nice throw.
Absolutely.
Again, another Sunday throw. You see a lot of Sunday throws from this kid.
Yeah. Same hash throw, but still, it does require him to drive it outside.
Yeah, you're right.
But still, it's well timed. It still requires some zip. All good.
I think that one was a little behind his guy. Again, this is one of those throws where he probably should have put a little bit more touch on it, especially when throwing to backs. Because the rule when throwing to backs is you basically have to put it right on their hands.
Yeah. And this is a play where, he'll probably look at this or has looked at it and said, where's the room? Where's the space where I can let him run under the ball and get his hands out in front of him to catch it, as opposed to turn back and have to do that number where he's here. Because if he can maybe catch it and continue to turn up the sideline, he might even beat the secondary defender here.
Right, yeah, that's a ball that's not placed well, and again, probably one he wants back.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we would be looking for, and I'm sure, Jordan has watched a good bit of Bonner, and myself as well, you would look and go, is this a consistent thing with short area passing? And, if this were the first time we're looking at it, that would be a note that we would be marking.
Another tunnel screen.
Yeah, this seems to be very much a staple to him and Browning.
Yeah. Browning's a pretty good receiver, too.
Yeah, he is. Certainly will go up and win the ball. I like that. And, he's got 3 or 4 guys coming free here. And the share, again, shows a fair bit of anticipation. Not a huge game, but certainly something that isn't, he doesn't take the sack, and he gets the ball in the area that needs to be. Yeah, it's a nice sell. And what I really do love the footwork here, because again, a lot of the shotgun quarterbacks do not have the footwork that you're seeing from him, and I think a lot of that does stem with his play under center that you talked about, that he's experienced with that. He treats this shotgun pass as if he's taking the snap from center in some respects, with the clarity of his feet. Getting set up. It's a nice base to set up from. And like you said, nice anticipation. I mean, the ball's gone and not even fully out of his break yet.
Right.
and it's well within the boundary too. That's nice. That's the thing. If he didn't have good anticipation, this pass might be a tougher boundary play than it was, because
Right.
the
Agreed. Yep.
ball might arrive right on the line. Instead, it arrives a good yard and a half inside the line. So he makes the job easier for Browning already. Nice zip.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some good velocity on his throws. And he can really drive the ball deep. We haven't seen that yet in this game, but he can. I mean, he throws a deep ball, just a beautiful deep ball.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's a treat. I'm right there with you. Definitely
He
is
can,
a treat to
he can
see.
flick his wrist and throw it 50 yards. Okay, here's another one of those, the boots of the staple of the Shanahan Kubiak offense. Throw into the far side off that play action.
Yep, and that's not an easy throw.
No, and he puts it right on the money.
Yeah, I mean this is a type of play that you often see guys get exposed, especially at workouts when we go to like some of these all-star games. I remember a guy like Sean Canfield as an example of a guy who at Oregon State you'd see trying to make throws like this and just really couldn't get the ball there. Um, and who was a decent college quarterback, You look at this, and I mean, again, little things, and it's fun because when you have a player who's as good as Bonner, you can nitpick stuff that is just things that he's only going to get better at. The play action, I like how he punches his play action,
Mm-hmm.
but you can also see where he has opportunities to sell the play fake just a little bit longer or a little bit more, even though on this play it's more of a tempo play. So
And then you also see, I mean, he's got again, he's not going to be a running threat, but he's got the foot mobility to carry out, these types of plays, to carry out any sort of really, step of pass play where you're requiring him to roll, that you would need, and the arm strength again to get the ball, to wherever it needs to go, and then throws accurately, on the move, even going to his, even rolling to his left, throwing away from his, rolling away from his throwing arm, he can put it right on the money as well. So for teams like like the Broncos, this is probably one of the reasons why the Broncos are supposedly showing a lot of interest in Bonner, is because he can do what they want their quarterbacks to do.
yeah, I think he'd be a great fit in that scheme. I think he would have been a great fit. He would have been where Kubiak just was in Baltimore as a backup and a developmental player for Flacco if they were lucky enough to get a guy like that. But
Man,
as
that's
an
got to be perfect spot for him because to me, he is Flacco.
yeah, I'm right there with you. That's my comparison too. Is
Yeah, so it's like, what, if you're Ozzy, why not get, a younger, very similar version of the guy you already have and just let him sit back there?
yeah, but then you can look at teams like Houston, you could look at teams like Denver, and you could see possibilities there where that could work. And really, Bonner's the type of player where there's really a lot of teams would find him a pretty good pick because of the flexibility he gives you as a pocket passer
Right.
and an under the center player.
Right. Again, he's already got the sort of leg up on a lot of guys, especially coming out because, he did huddle with guys and he's had to have command of a huddle, and call plays in the huddle and then again, change protections or get guys lined up properly rather than just, staring at a card on the sideline and then you're running the play.
Yeah. And let's look at this play. We got a safety blitz that comes here at the late stages, number 27 or 21, whoever it is here near the left hash.
Mm.
And then you also have it layered in with another linebacker coming in. Looking at the coverage right now, I mean, you're looking at fairly good coverage at this stage. And when that back foot hits the yeah, and when that back foot hits the ground, if he's looking to the middle, it looks like he is here. That middleman has this area of the zone covered. So this would be a very tight, difficult throw. The only throw you could see is maybe if he's able to hit something inside from here, but
Right.
that's a tough call with a free man right in his, really heading in his face here. He knows he has to run. So I mean, yeah,
Yeah, and
that's a
like I said, he's not much of a scrambling threat. I said he's more of a pocket guy, but at least he got out of the way, at least to save some yardage on that blitz. Like you said, I think when his back foot hit, the guy was pretty much coming.
yeah. I mean, at that back foot, when you see that flash of orange and that big of a flash of orange that looks like Gossamer, from the old Warner Brothers cartoons, I think it's time for Bugs Bunny to flee the castle here. So, yeah, and he takes a shot, but still, I mean, that's better than trying to throw the ball and squeeze it in there. You'd rather see them take a sack if nothing's open. And you can't throw it away because you can't get away from the pocket. We're going to see another blitz, and this is a nice part about this game. And I'm glad you picked this game, Jordan, because you get a chance to see a variety of blitzes thrown his way off the corners from the safeties, and that's a very nice aware step right up into that and throw.
And a nice throw on the money outside there.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, you see him turn.
Yeah, it looks like he sees the blitzer again, but he's just very calm in the pocket. Just climbs up a little bit and then drives that ball to the far side.
And watch the feet because you see the beginning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see him change the rhythm of his back step a little bit because of that blitz. And that's nice too because you see a lot of quarterbacks who when they drop back, they have this rhythm in their head of how it goes. It's like someone who's playing music and like practiced it a certain way for, hours and hours and hours on end. But then when they're playing with a group and something changes with the dynamic of how it's played, they can't quite adjust to the rhythm of what's going on the actual performance. And this, to me, is you see him shorten those last few strides so that he can climb that pocket a little bit quicker because he knows he has to. And then he's able to adjust and step through and get that velocity on there. That's a very underrated play.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, as soon as that back foot, I mean, you're right. The last couple of steps he knew, and as soon as that back foot hit, he knew he had to get climbed up that pocket and then try to get that ball out.
Yeah, and that's part of just good awareness. It's good pocket awareness. It's also an integration of what's actually happening on the field and what he's practiced and being able to adjust away from that just enough. A little bit of that feet right there.
Right. And that's all, like you said, awareness and then pocket mobility and then the velocity to be able to get that ball out there.
Yeah. And then let's see what we got there.
Now that play, to me, that is a great, great throw. It doesn't get completed, but that guy is already beat the tackle. He hits him, I think, and then he has to step up, avoid another guy, step up even more, take a shot, and then still throws a ball that is a little bit low, but I mean, still gets the ball out to his receiver to at least try to make a play on it.
Yeah, he basically addresses 3 defenders on this play. And because you see him wanting, I think his first reaction was to want to slide to the right, like to flush right here. He's reducing that shoulder, and he sees this gap, but then you see the defender coming free right off here. And very quick reaction and read there. And the throw with a defender wrapping him that's great.
That's one of those off-platform throws that you're talking about earlier, where that whole thing is improv. And throws that off-platform throw, and I think the DB actually might have got a hand on that one. That's why it wasn't complete. But still, there's so much that he did back there in the pocket. That's impressive. Turning what should have been a sack, 3 times into a near completion.
Yeah, and you could also be nitpicky and say, well, this in the NFL, this might get jumped and be a pick 6. That may be, and that'd be a thing that you could probably critique and say, maybe he has to be a little bit more cautious and throw the ball away in this instance, or try and put it where only the receiver has even a remote chance of getting it. But that does not negate what he did at the beginning of this play that was good.
Right.
I mean, Look at that.
Yeah, like I said, that goes back to like his size and strength of his frame. Again, like I'm not saying every quarterback needs to be 6'6" or 6'7" by any means, but when you have a large enough frame to be able to withstand hits, or a large enough frame to be able to shield, defenders and still get the ball away. He did that in the championship game too, in a very crucial point. Where he shielded a DB away with his left arm and was able to throw the ball to the tight end and get some yardage and not take a sack. Again, it's a Sunday play.
Yeah, and if you're going to project to Sundays, there are going to be some things that you can see, and I can imagine this because at least, for the years we've been doing this, I'm sure you can imagine this too, is that the good side of this is that once he gets a feel for the speed of the NFL game, a lot of this is going to come into play in a very positive light. His rookie year, you might see him do this, and if he survives the first two guys and gets past and gets into this position here, this is where he might realize, okay, this is where it's jumped in the NFL. And he's going to go, all right, here are some situations where I have to be a little more cautious. But it's part of that learning curve, and it's not a way that I would look at that and say, oh, this guy's throwing blind, or he's throwing blind into coverage, or he can't read a defense. It would just be, when does he know when to try to be a hero and when not to try to be a hero?
Right. Yeah, and his touchdown interception ratio was very good. I don't have it off the top of my head, but he took care of the ball.
Yeah, and it's very clear that he does, and it's one of those things that I'd rather have guys. I mean, and this is a preference thing. It's not, and teams all have different preferences, but I like guys who play a little bit with an edge and sometimes bleed over into being a little too aggressive. Rather than guys who I don't think are aggressive enough.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's not an Alex Smith that's only going to throw 4-yard passes. As we've seen, he's willing to throw the ball down the field, but again, doesn't throw many interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
This is, and when people go, oh, well, the level of competition means something. Yes, it can. It can if you're determining level of talent. Maybe if you're saying, who did he beat off press, or whose tackles did he break? What type of pile did he push? But when you're talking about technique like avoiding interior pressure with good technique, this is a very strong play. I mean,
agreed.
Look at that.
Interior pressure is so difficult for these guys to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. These guys are in his face. He turns away. And again, this is not exactly this is in between an off-platform and a platform throw.
Right.
It's an off-platform throw, but he's good enough at getting his feet and his hips into position where he can make these plays. So when I've seen people say his feet look awkward from the pocket when he's pressured, I think they haven't gone the full step through to understand that he's getting his feet into his body into his good enough position to make an off-platform throw in a way that is actually a very good technique.
Yeah, and then he takes a shot there too, and that's just a great throw. I mean, again, he turned, what should have been a sack from that interior pressure, slides over in the pocket, gets that lead foot almost all the way back around, and then was able to deliver that throw and still get hit. Like, he doesn't mind getting hit. It's almost what it seems like.
Yeah.
Again, he plays with a sense of calm in the pocket, where he's willing to take a shot. He's willing to stand there and throw rather than, again, a lot of college guys take off and run.
Yeah, this stance is very classic off-platform type of stance where he's using his hips and his arm to whip that ball over the top.
Right.
Winston does this as well. It's just that this one happens to be more from a tighter pocket, and he does a good job of actually placing the ball low and away.
Right, and taking a hit and then getting back up.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite plays actually of his.
My favorite one is his next one.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, this is a great play too. Yeah, you were absolutely right. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and if
gorgeous.
you, I mean, again, if that won't even show up on the box score for what that play is. That play is an amazing play. As Josh Liskowitz, and I talked about when Josh first saw that play, he's like, that's a play that only a few quarterbacks in the country can make. That only a few quarterbacks can make this throw because, and we'll see it better from the end zone angle. Again, this is that play action bootleg, and he's going around throwing on the move. But the guy that is well covered, that DB's running that route better than the wide receiver is at that point. But Bonner still has this aggressiveness to him where, well, what if I put it over here and my guy can make an adjustment to it, and then next thing you know, it's 6 points. So
Yeah,
it's a great throw just to get it out there, but it's also again it's a calculated risk and it's a measure of aggression in this throw. It was very impressed with this.
yeah. I mean, to throw a receiver open on this type of play is
Right, because I mean, yeah, when you look at it right there, I mean, the DB's in better position. If he throws this ball where it should be, the DB's going to pick it off.
yeah.
Or he could throw it away would be his other option. But he goes with option C of, you know what, I'm going to back shoulder it kind of and throw it back inside and let my guy see it and go get it.
How much do you think he and the receiver has discussed this possibility in the past? Because the receiver really sells this too. Like, look how
Yeah,
well the receiver is. Like, he's looking back, still running, and as soon as he sees it that way, I mean, just how quick that turn was,
yeah,
you almost wonder. It's like, okay, look, if he's yeah, and even if the receiver sells us well, this is not taking anything away from Chris Bonner because you know that what probably has to happen here is Bonner saying, look, as we've communicated in the past, in practice, whatever, in the huddle, if this guy's on your back hip and it's
yes.
tight to your hip, I'm throwing it to your back shoulder, and then all you have to do is spin around.
You're right. I mean, it's probably something that they worked on. But yeah, again, it's just to me just an amazing throw and amazing awareness by both the receiver and Bonner on that play. And and again, it led to 6 points, and it turns a field goal into a touchdown because he doesn't throw it away. He's like, you know what, I'm going to put it where my guy can get it, and only my guy can get it, and I'm going to give him a shot at it, and it's a touchdown.
Yeah, that's the type of throw we often see from a guy like Drew Brees.
Yeah, I mean that's just a smart heady throw is all that is, and it's a smart heady throw on the move and in the red zone.
Yeah,
Here's a nice touch pass, nice bucket throw that he gets, but the defender gets a flag for a PI. But you can see he can throw with touch and and drop it touch and drop it right in the corner.
absolutely. And it's not quite. Well, it's more middle of the field, but it's still this is a pretty long distance throw in that short area.
Right, and he threw one of those for a championship game.
Yeah,
Because that's one of the things that people like to talk about with level of competition. Well, when you look at the small school guys, they dominate their level of competition. And it's like, well, Bonner dominated his level of competition. I mean, what more do you want than the guy who he won the national championship?
yeah,
I think he only lost 2 games in his 2 years as a starter. He threw like over 60 touchdown passes in 2 years.
yeah,
Here he is playing FCS team, and he completes in this game. I looked at his stat line before we watched it. It's 20 of 32 for 62% of his passes, 255 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
yeah.
On the road against a very good FCS team.
And it's the type of plays. Like, to me, I mean, we could probably. I think if you get like 20 guys in a room who do the type of work that we all do and ask about small school competition, we'd all have variations of opinions about how that works and how it doesn't and what to evaluate. But I'm I'm just going to share mine, is I'm a big believer that it's like in a lot of instances of plays, if he executes it well and you are projecting what an NFL player would do in response to that, or a set of NFL players, I don't care. It's just like I don't care, because if it works, it works. It's the same way as if you look at a running back who averages less than 3 yards a carry against a tough team, and he's making good decisions, and he's breaking tackles, and he's making people miss, and he's being creative but also showing mature judgment. And if he's doing all those things, I might not see what his top end speed looks like, but you bet your behind I see what his judgment is. I certainly see what his pad level's about. I certainly understand enough about him to go whether or not I think, that's a pretty good back. That's a pro caliber back if his speed checks out. if his power, if his agility numbers check out, certain things that will help, provide that. So to me, like in a game like this, you're seeing so much heady execution. Again, the touch could be a little better.
Yeah.
He's trying to show touch
This is,
here.
yeah, where he probably shouldn't have thrown with as much touch and should have just put it on the guy a little bit more. Again, not one of his best throws because yeah, he put a little too much under that. Again, he's throwing to a guy whose number is in the 40s. So when you're throwing to those guys, you need to put it on them and kind of on their hands. Another thing going back to that level of competition that I like to keep in mind is, Chris Bonner is not the only D2 kid out there. You know what I mean? Like he's playing with D2 kids.
Yeah.
So like you have to take into account the people that are surrounded by. It's not like he's throwing to a bunch of NFL, caliber, players. I think Browning can play, maybe in Canada or maybe, on an NFL team possibly, but it's not like he's throwing to, a bunch of, first round draft picks.
Right.
I think was that one a little overthrown?
I think, yeah, it was hard to tell from that.
I think so. I think you might have put a little too much smoke on that one.
Yeah, but considering it was an opposite hash throw, you see the example of the arm strength. And it almost looked like he tried to loop it over there a little bit, but I don't know. I saw a little bit of. Tell me what you think, whether you agree with me or not. You just see the ball.
No, I see what you're saying. There's a little bit of arc in it.
Yeah.
But you got too far out in front.
Yeah, but if you're going to err on a deep out, you'd rather be further outside your receiver.
And again, going back to the level of competition. Not to make excuses, but that's a really diminutive D2 wide receiver. If he's throwing to a big NFL wide receiver, that pass is probably complete.
Yep, that's a very good point. And again, that's projecting to the NFL. That's taking what you're seeing and projecting to the NFL game.
Another one of their tunnel screens.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get Browning in space a decent amount in this game. Browning again is pretty talented wide receiver, especially for the D2 level.
Yeah, and you see them that they often try and do that early with him, either in space or throwing the fades, or some of these deeper sideline type of perimeter routes. They seem to focus on him a lot in that area of the field. And I just like this is such a complete game that's complementary to the running game. When you mention Kubiak, it's perfect because it's you have these levels. You have working from center to hand the ball off. You have the play fake from center. You have the boot action fakes from center. Then you have the boot fakes with the screen game. You have the play fakes in the screen game. So there's a lot of different levels to how this all fits together and is integrated into a game plan, and you see how well he's executing all of this.
Right. And he played, again, the offense is much more well-rounded than a lot of college offenses because there was a healthy dose of run game and under center run game and things like that. And you've seen situations where they'd be in, 21 personnel and things like that, which the NFL's barely even in 21 personnel anymore. But you're right. It's a layered, attack, and then it's got different dimensions to it, and again, very comparable. The offense is actually basically put together by a coach who got it from the NFL.
Yeah, and there's some touch for you.
Throw. Yeah, that is a beautiful throw.
Yeah, and this is in the face of a blitz that's picked up well. The blitz is picked up very early. But Bonner knows that. Here comes that blitz right off that side here. You have the safety rolling over. And he sees that the back's got this all picked up.
Right, and just loops it right over there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. What are things about quarterback play that you look at and you go, that's tough to teach and that's tough to project to the NFL? Like, if they don't have it, forget about it.
Well, again, a lot of times I like to go back to third downs. Not to harp on him too much, but when I was watching Logan Thomas when he came out, I'd watch film, and on third downs, I used to be able to, before the play, I could pick out who he was throwing to.
Yeah.
just because I knew his tendencies, and it was basically he threw a shallow cross almost every third down. And if a quarterback's throwing short of the sticks on every third down, they're not going to translate well to the NFL. Like it's one of the things that I try to harp on people with quarterbacks. It's like I need guys who are going to attack the sticks on third and throw it past the sticks on third. Sometimes Bonner didn't do that enough because it also might have been offense related. But again, if I like to see if these guys can convert plays with their arm and with their head. This is just a halfback throw here.
Sure.
So those are the types of things that I look at. Again, what's converting to Sundays? Because scrambling and picking up first downs with your legs, while it's awesome and we love athletes who can do it, it doesn't translate to the NFL because you end up getting RG3'd, and then you're missing a bunch of time because you tore up your knee, or same thing happened to EJ Manuel. He was trying to pick up some yards, and scrambling and got his knee hit and got hurt as well. And so, you need guys who can, operate and win from the pocket.
Yeah.
And, a lot of guys aren't comfortable back there.
No.
And so there's a certain comfort level with Bonner that I don't see with a lot of other quarterbacks who are coming out, where it's a one or two reads and then take off with, with their legs.
I'm inclined to agree with you. And I mean, I have him rated 4th overall in my group of quarterbacks, and I do think that I don't think there's as much separation among those top 3 as people say.
Yeah, I agree, and I also don't think a lot of people think, oh, D2, he's a super developmental guy, and it's going to take him years. And I don't see that at all. I mean, granted, he's D2, but to me, that's just sort of lazy analysis. Because what I see again is a lot of here's where the scoreboard starts to go. You see a lot of translatable skills. You see the fact that he's already, been doing a lot of things that the quarterbacks do on Sundays. So he's going to actually have a much easier transition than, a lot of D1 big school quarterbacks. The biggest thing for him is going to be, the speed of the game. But, he's already got so many reps of, operating under center and turning his back to the defense and then getting his eyes back around. That these guys don't look. That's a nice throw there too, reducing that shoulder. I don't think the throw's completed. But still, that's impressive pocket, awareness and pocket mobility and things like that.
This was also one of my favorite plays I've seen of his games because, again, even though, like you said, it isn't a completed pass, he puts it only where the receiver can get it. And look how good he resets here. I mean, look how fast he resets. This is interior pressure, 2 steps, resets, and he's already ready to fire. That's so fast. I'm telling you right now, Marcus Mariota does not do this. He does not do this nearly as well as someone as Bonner does. Jameis Winston does it sometimes, but not nearly as fast. Brett Hundley I've seen do very well in the pocket and move around, but I don't think anyone I've seen reset as fast as Bonner does.
Right. I mean, that's a beautiful play there. And like I said, I mean, I think the wide receiver gets driven out of bounds by the DB too. But like you said, I mean, that to me that's Sunday pocket movement and awareness right there. And being like you said, he's able to get around and take a hit, but get that left foot planted and headed downfield rather than throwing with his feet parallel, which some quarterbacks have a tendency to do. And get that ball downfield. I mean, that could have very easily been a completed pass, but still, what he did, before the throw to even get that out is impressive.
And it draws the penalty. I mean, it's an illegal hands to the face. I think it's a late hit. I thought it was a late hit, but it looks like illegal hands to the face.
So, but yeah, because he got hit, and then but again, like he's got the frame to be able to withstand that type of punishment and play through a full game. Yeah, see, that's impressive. Like you said, I mean, just gets his hips around, gets that left foot pointed downfield, and then makes that throw down there.
Yeah, and if you don't complete the pass, at least put it where no one else is going to be able to get at it, and that's what he does.
And don't take the sack.
Yeah. And is this a throw from the opposite hash as well? No, same hash throw. But still, I mean, look at that. Turns away. He's looking off the safety to the left side anyway, and knows where his foot is. Yeah.
And like I said, he doesn't. He's so calm back there because he's able to, execute, those small pocket movements, and he doesn't care about getting hit.
Yeah.
So when, like, I didn't watch too much of Carr his senior year, but Carr his junior year scared the crap out of me because
Me too.
he saw ghosts. I mean, the guy would just, get scared in the pocket when there was nobody there. And, to me, Bonner is the polar opposite. He's the guy who isn't scared in the pocket even when people are there.
Yeah.
Like I've seen, he deals with interior pressure probably better than most quarterbacks in this class or that I've seen lately. And he just, operates back there like, he's, like it's his living room.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And Carr was, I definitely had the same notion with Carr. And I actually this year in my publication, I've actually used knockout factors. And one of my knockout factors in pocket play is, do you see ghosts, essentially? Do you overreact to pressure? Because to me, I think that's very difficult to not do, because I saw him do it as a senior too. I mean, so he was the guy I actually had on the line. Like I had Garoppolo as a guy that I felt like overreacted to a lot of plays. But I thought Carr was someone who I saw instances where he was on the border where I was like, oh, that's not good. But then I saw enough that I was like I probably would fail him, but he would be at the top of my failure list of guys. Like, he might improve this, and he might be that exception, but or I might put him as a borderline pass, but he'd be low. I wouldn't be surprised if it deteriorated.
Yeah, he scared me. Like off his junior tape, like I said, I thought he saw ghosts, and I thought that I wouldn't touch him at all. And then again, I didn't really evaluate him much his senior year, but he scared me enough his junior year where I really didn't watch much of him his senior year.
Sure, understand.
I love this. I love the guy. The scoreboard goes on the fritz, and then now you got a guy on a ladder in the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Again, which you never see. I had Mike Tanier emailing me about that, laughing. Because you never see that when you watch coaches film. And then I love how, like, the next play, the guy on the ladder is gone, like the scoreboard ate him. This is a nice throw here to the back where he puts it on the outside of the back. So again, he's trying to shield the ball away from the defense. It's like, and the back's able to spin around and catch the ball. So it's almost like a backside throw where he knows those defenders are coming. He knows he has room to the sidelines, and so he puts it on that other side and completes the pass. And
under pressure.
I love how angry the coach gets on the sideline, too. You'll see this coach on the sideline come out just screaming and yelling right before the scoreboard eats the repairman. Yeah, that coach right there is just furious.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you let him complete that back shoulder throw to a running back?
And meanwhile,
the scoreboard has eaten the repairman.
But yeah, but look at this. I mean, he's clearly recognizes pressure's coming. They shift, and with the pressure arriving, he's still able to. He anticipates this very well. Yeah, this is just very heady play.
Agreed. And this is a beautiful throw.
Yes. I mean, he catches us about the 20.
No, I think right around there. Was it around the 15? I don't know. We should see how far
15.
he goes in the air.
Yeah, let's see.
Because this is another Sunday throw, and a lot of quarterbacks who play in the NFL can't even make this throw.
No.
I had to suffer through some bad quarterback play towards the end of the season last year as a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's, like I said, this kid throws just a beautiful deep ball. So turns his back to the defense, gets his body around, throws that from the 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you're right. He catches it at the 20.
Yeah, so you're
52 yards in the air?
Yeah, 52 yards in the air, and then from the line of scrimmage, it was from the 35, so 15 and 30. So we're looking at a 45-yard throw as a completion from line of scrimmage to the ball, but in the air, 52 yards, very nice.
In stride, on the money for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So that's what you see. Like if you have this kid, on a team that's got a running game already established, well, he adds this very dangerous dimension. Oh, the guy's back. He adds this very dangerous dimension to your offense because he can do this.
Yeah, and and he flicked that ball with the
Yeah, he can
defender
just
in his face.
flick his wrist and it's 50 yards downfield on the money.
Yeah, very easy. Like, bing, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely good work there. This is a guy too. Like I would look at it. This is a guy that I would love also to see in a team like San Diego as a later pick, where you could let him develop behind Phillip Rivers a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
you could even have a little bit more flexibility with the play action game and pocket movement and build onto that over time. But you'd also get the benefit of playing behind a veteran like Rivers.
Right, and then I mean the way that I see that he needs to develop in the NFL would be, I mean, if he can sit for a little while and just learn how to prepare as an NFL starter, that would be awesome. And then get used to the speed of the game in practices again, that would be awesome. But again, to me, he can develop into an NFL starter a lot faster than people think, simply because he's already making a lot of Sunday plays and Sunday throws and Sunday reads.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm just a total like if you want to tune into Twitter and see someone say, I don't want to see anyone but maybe 5 to 10% of all NFL rookies start in the NFL as a quarterback, I'm probably your man. I'd like to see them go back to the sit 2 3 years, or at least a season, and give them no matter how good they are, unless they're like Luck Wilson level. I'm not buying it. I'd like to give them some opportunity and some time. I just think that they get a little bit more out of it most of the time. And certainly there are exceptions to that rule, but that's why I look at a guy like Bonner, and I agree with you. I think he could probably hang right away, he could probably manage right away in a good offense and grow from there. But I would love to see him have a couple of years behind someone really good, and then just get in and be pretty polished.
Agreed. And he could also be, I mean, if a team would like to, you could go the Belichick route with him, and you draft him and you keep him for a couple of years, and then you could, turn around and you get a return on your investment. You let him
Yeah,
sit behind a veteran and get mentored for a couple of years, and then the next thing you know, some team's willing to offer you a higher pick than you took on him.
yeah, absolutely. And this is this is the type of player that's gonna make some team look smart. I'm right there with you in that regard.
Agreed, but it's kind of funny that I'm not going to name teams, but I've spoken to several teams about him that really didn't know anything about him when I talked to them. So,
Yeah,
I know that teams are on to him now, but yeah, for a while there, I mean, I guess when he went to the Medal of Honor Bowl, a lot of the scouts there were like, "Who are you? Who are you? Where did you come from?" Because all of a sudden they saw this guy, just killing it at practices. So, as much as we think that the NFL is on top of everything, sometimes they aren't as on top of it as everyone thinks. So he's definitely a guy who's on their radar now, but he definitely wasn't during the season, and maybe during the area scouts' first run through. I don't know how many run throughs they did at Pueblo. But I mean, I can tell you, like, I've talked to NFL executives about him, and they just looked at me like, "Who?"
yeah.
And so now they know who he is, but they necessarily didn't,
And
this past couple months.
yeah, and the way the NFL sets up their scouting departments, oftentimes you have so much territory to cover, and they're major schools, and they're all your underclassmen and upperclassmen, and they're running around having to try and attend practices, write reports, watch film, and go to games. CSU-Pueblo is not going to be that main team on your radar
Right.
if you're not scouting from home and scouting from a home base, and you have the luxury to be able to watch a bigger mass of players in one setting without having to deal with all of the different logistical issues of being an area scout. And that's why a guy like, it's not that the scouts are bad, it's not that, it's just that, it's why a guy like Victor Cruz or a Rod Smith or a Joe Horn or a number of players slide through the cracks over the years, because of the fact that it's just really more logistics and management and operational strategy flaw as opposed to being a flaw in actual scouting of talent. So, so yeah, I mean, this was great. I really enjoyed doing this with you, Jordan. And, again, if you guys haven't seen, we're gonna have Jordan say goodbye and tell us a little bit more here. But go follow Jordan at Starving Scout. You can see it on his backdrop here with GM Junior, and and see all the fine work that he and the GM Junior guys do. And this was a lot of fun, Jordan. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on, Matt. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your work. I'm a big fan of the film room stuff that you do, and I'm glad that hopefully some of you people out there who watch this can now see some of the things that I see in Bonner and why I've sort of put my name on him, and think that he's, to me, in my opinion, the top senior quarterback in the country and a player who can play on Sundays, whether that's a year or two down the road remains to be seen. But I don't think his window to develop is as big as a lot of people make it sound. So again, this is a guy I think that can translate to Sundays. And if you'd like to follow me again on Twitter, I'm at Starving Scout. I'll be tweeting out some of the scouting reports. And I'll probably actually tweet out the Bonner one again when this thing goes to air, so people can read that as well. So again, Matt, thanks for having me on, and thanks for watching, everybody.
Oh, definitely. And thank you again. And you guys have a good weekend. And just one last note I will add. I mean, number one overall, that may seem pretty bold, but if you saw what we saw today, um, I don't think there's much of a separation between the top three and really the top four. It should be called the top four, not the top three. So thanks again, Jordan. Everyone have a good weekend.